Hey, what's up guys? It's Art Book Addiction here, and we're here with a new artist journey video. So this week, we're going to be talking about wisdom, okay? So what exactly is wisdom, okay? To me, wisdom is the ability to assess information around you, okay? And the ability to make the best choice given that information, given the circumstances that you're in, given all the factors that could be factored in to make the right decision, okay, or to make a good choice, or to make a choice that on the surface may not look the best, right, but it's actually in the long term is the best, right? So there are many aspects to wisdom. It is a very general term, okay, but we'll get into it and its importance to the artist, okay? So that's what we talk about today. Before we start the video, please hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my prints and Patreon. If you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member and join that Discord, okay? And with that, let's get into it. Wisdom, okay? Like I said, the ability to make the right choice, okay? To assess information and to figure out, hey, what do I do based on this information, okay? It's hugely important, and especially for artists, okay? Because artists, we are, we're thinkers, okay? We ruminate, we obsess, right? We have a thing and we think about it and we try to figure things out. We try to problem solve, right? And our minds tend to have chaos, a little bit more chaos imbued into the brain, okay? So a lot of us, right, I especially see it in artists, like in myself, in people in my Discord, other artists that I've encountered, and I think people in general, right? We suffer and we struggle, okay, right? And once you've encountered enough suffering and struggle, you'll start to realize that wisdom is truly the cure, okay? Wisdom is the key to you being able to face any situation, okay, right? And maybe it's horrible, and maybe obviously you're not gonna like it. Having wisdom doesn't mean that you don't feel anymore. Wisdom simply means that you understand the situation for what it is, right? And you can make a decision based on that, all right? And I like to believe that art helps create wisdom, okay, right? The result of years of study, of years of practice, of dedication, and of work, okay, of the divine labor, the result should be wisdom, okay? Not only because you know yourself, right, and you understand yourself, right, but that because you are taking something from beyond and bringing it to this earth, right, through that practice, that you learn something, okay, that you learn something about the world, the nature of the world, the nature of creativity, the nature of your own being, okay, and from that you derive wisdom, okay, right? So a lot of people, I know, a lot of you watch my channel because of these videos, these artist journey videos, right, where I try to impart wisdom upon you, right? But how does one become wise, right? I'm not going to say that I'm 100% wise, right? But I think people would agree that I have wisdom to impart, okay, right? And attaining wisdom, okay, or having wisdom is not an easy thing, okay? Wisdom is very elusive. It's something. It's just like the divine, okay? The divine and wisdom go hand in hand, okay? And they are, again, elusive things. They are vague things. They are things that you can't really nail down exactly, right? What is, like I said, it's like an idea. What is wisdom exactly, okay? What is something like honor, right? What is something like the ability to decide these things, right? Because they're on levels, they're on a spectrum, right? But you know it when you see it, okay, right? You know it when you see it. When you meet someone who has wisdom within them, and you talk to them, and like you could feel it. You could feel it from them, right? Some people you could be skeptical about, right? And you could feel like you're like, okay, well, I don't know if I really trust what this guy's saying, right? And then there's people who you talk to them, and there's an air about them. There's a presence. There's like they say something to you, and it's like a truth that you've always already known, okay? But you need someone to confirm it. You know what I mean, right? That is the beauty of wisdom. Wisdom is the infinite knowledge that everyone already knows, okay, but have simply forgotten or put away or hidden, okay? And wisdom seeks to take those out, okay, to dig and bring out those feelings, okay, that ancient divine knowledge that is embedded within our bodies and in our brains, okay, right? And in a way, right, wisdom is everywhere. Okay, you could learn wisdom from anything and everyone everywhere, right? Even a fool can impart wisdom upon you, right? By simply you analyzing them, right? You analyzing the situation, you analyzing this person, and you see perhaps they lack wisdom, okay, right? And what is it that they're doing in which they lack that wisdom, right? Or what is this person doing in which they have wisdom, right? And the ability to grasp information from many sources, okay, from many places and many people, right, will increase your ability to impart and to have wisdom, okay, to think with a mindset of wisdom, okay, right? And again, wisdom is hard to define, okay? How do you know exactly when something is wise or not, right? Like I said, you don't know. You don't know until it's right in front of your face. Okay, you don't know until boom, it happens, right? It is just like art, okay, right? When you go into art, okay, when you're drawing something, when you're painting something, it should be kind of a mystery to you what it's gonna look like, right? Of course, you're gonna like work at it and you have an idea and you kind of understand what you're gonna be drawing, right? But at the end of the day, it's a mystery, dude. Okay. It's an unknown, right? And that is the same thing that wisdom works off, okay? The unknown. And the unknown is when you're gonna need wisdom the most, okay? When you don't know something, right? Wisdom will be your shield, okay? Right? Wisdom will be your shield and your sword. The things that are gonna get you to the situation where you don't know what the hell's going on, right? So, the ability to assess information, okay? Gather information, make an informed decision, okay, right? And it sounds so logical, but it's also not logical. Do you understand, right? So, like you take someone like Marcus Aurelius, okay, right? You know, you take from like Stoic philosophy, right? And you know, like I for one, okay, like you know, if you're a Stoic, right, yourself, I for one think that Marcus Aurelius's like teachings are helpful, right? However, they are not like a complete one for all like philosophy that's gonna solve all your issues. You know what I mean? It could help you deal with hard times, okay, right? But it's not necessarily super good at allowing one to flourish and to be happy and to enjoy the moment, right? There's much more to life than just being stoic, okay, right, is what I'm saying, right? So that's another thing, looking at other philosophers, okay, looking at thinkers, looking at people and like thinking yourself, right? Wisdom comes from like observing oneself, looking at oneself and thinking and assessing, okay, right? Not necessarily having to criticize all the time, but looking at yourself and like looking like, oh, I tend to do this. Why is that, right? Is that okay? You know, something that you're doing that you think is okay, that other people don't think is okay, right? And you have to decide yourself, like, well, are they right or am I right? You know, right? And having the wisdom to choose that thing, okay? To choose if whether you're doing what you think is right or it's actually wrong, or like maybe it's not right or wrong. Maybe it's much more, you know, spread out than that. You know, maybe it's just a matter of perspective, right? Being able to assess those things is all part of wisdom, okay, right? And how does that affect art? Okay, how does that affect art? It's making wise decisions on the canvas. Okay, right? And sometimes those wise decisions go beyond you. Okay, right? And sometimes you don't need them. Like, they don't have to be wise every time. You know what I mean? Not every brushstroke has wisdom and part in it, right? You know what I mean? Though you would want that, right? But again, art, the creation of art, okay, and its practice, what you should derive from it is wisdom. What you should, like you're going out there, you're going and you're painting, you're learning from the painting, you're diving deep into the canvas, right? And you should come out with information, okay, right? And like, you know, that it's like, the way I'm saying it is very sterile, okay, but that's what it really is, okay? Information, right? Whether it be about yourself, whether you learn something, but it doesn't have to be like information that is very tangible, okay? Very like oh, now I know a thing, you know what I mean? It's more like I feel like I'm a little bit better. I feel like I'm a little bit smarter, okay? And like I have this feeling of like this way is the right way. You know what I mean? It's a feel thing, okay? It's not like, when it comes to art is not I mean, it is intellectual, but it's more of a feeling. You know what I mean? It's a feeling, and you follow it and you grasp at it, right? Same thing with wisdom, okay? Because you're grasping at the same thing, right? Because you grasp, and then maybe you'll grab something, and then now you try to integrate it within yourself, right? That's why wisdom is so important, okay? Especially for the artist, okay? And I know, like, artists have a reputation for not being the wisest, right? But have you ever met, like, or have you seen those masters who have that wisdom within them? You've seen them, and like they say something, and you're like, that shit's so true, dude. You know, that's so true. I never expected that, right? Or they say something, and you're like it hits you like a train, you know, right? And that's another thing. You need to find people from which to gain wisdom from, okay, right? And, you know, of course, you watch my videos, and of course, like, I'm grateful to impart my wisdom upon you, right? But there are other people who you could learn from. You could learn from a million people, right? But you need to have people who, like, you believe in and you trust their wisdom, right? And really, really think about that, right? Look at that person and think, like, are they wise? Because there's a lot of frauds out there, okay? And there's a lot of idiots to follow them, right? So figure that out for yourself, right? Trust yourself to have the wisdom to figure it out. And when you're wrong, realize your mistake, okay? And assess from that. Now you have information. Oh, I made a mistake. Now I learn from that, right? It's all about learning, okay? It's all about getting info, okay? It's all about the ability to retrieve something useful from the ether, okay? So that when you paint, you are making the right decisions. You're making the right calls on the canvas, right? You know, and that's hard to assess, okay? But it feels right. You know it when you see it. When you made the right decision, you know it, okay? Because you go boop, and you're like, oh wow, that looks really good, okay? Boom. That's all you need, okay? It's a very simple thing, right? But can lead to a more complex form of thinking, right? When you're drawing, when you're painting, you're increasing your neurons, or you're firing on neurons that activate, you know what I mean? And you're thinking in a way that is purely visual. There's no words, you know what I mean? Like, of course you could think words, and you could think about what's right, what's wrong, you know what I mean, right? But when you're painting, at the end of the day, you're only really exercising visual stimuli. Okay, you're seeing something visual, you're trying to make it better, and you're trying to parse information and make the right decision, okay? Right? And so these things all kind of overlap with each other, right? So, like, not only can you make good decisions in art, but you can make good decisions in life, right? But life is messy, right? So it's going to give you chaotic factors from which you need to parse out information and, like, make an informed decision, right? Same thing with art. You look at the artwork, okay? You're like, okay, what's wrong? Okay, and then you analyze, and then you try to find the right decision, right? Or the right stroke, or like oh, what does this need? What does that need? Oh, like, should I fix this up, or should we, you know what I mean, right? It's the same kind of thinking, right? So wisdom, right? Why do you need it? Okay, that should be obvious, right? So that you're not a dumbass who makes stupid decisions and never gets anything done. Okay, right? So that's another thing, the wisdom for projects. Okay, when you're making a project, you need to be able to make it happen, right? How do you make it happen? You need to look at it and analyze the project and see, like, what can I do? How much can I do? And is that actually possible, right? I see a lot of people who think like I have this schedule and I'm gonna do this, and then it'll be done by this time. Anyone who's ever made a project knows that shit never fucking works. Okay, you have a schedule, you have a plan, cool, that's good. Okay, you're gonna miss it. Always, you're gonna miss it, right? So you need to be able to assess your speed. Okay, figure out how long something's gonna take, right? And be able to execute it well, right? What happens when you're on like a real time schedule and the pressure's on and there's other people relying on you, right? You need to be able to have the wisdom to know how long something's going to take, right? Or to give yourself extra time so that you have the time to finish it, or if something goes wrong, you could redo it or something like that, right? There are all these things that allow one to factor in wisdom into their work, okay, into their journey and into their process, okay, right? And now, besides that type of wisdom, the decision-making wisdom, there is the wisdom of the art, okay, right? Choosing what you draw, right? Knowing what to draw, right? Or having art that has, the divine energy in it and has that wisdom within. That, like, you look at a piece and you feel something and you feel like you learned something, right? But you don't know what, right? Because because it's not in a language. It's not in something that you could really, like, explain. You know what I mean? All you could see is, like, it's beautiful, it's beauty, right? But there is wisdom in beauty, okay? There's wisdom in something that has been crafted, okay? Because you look at it and you're like, wow, like, this is made by humans, this is made by a person, right? And there's a certain wisdom that you gain out of it, right? Have you ever had something that was built and you look at it and it looks so complex and so beautiful and so streamlined, and and you're like, how is this even made? How is this even, like, possible, right? And you feel like you gained a little knowledge just by holding it, just by playing with it. You know what I mean, right? That is beautiful. That is a wisdom that goes beyond you. That is mechanical wisdom. That is like a wisdom, the ability to build something, to be able to create something, right? So wisdom is required to make stuff, right? And to make stuff well, okay? Because you need to make a decision, you need to make a call, right? So wisdom is a part of making stuff too, right? Obviously, like, but I'm saying, like, outside of art, you know what I mean, right? So that's how, like, people don't really think about that, you know what I mean? People don't really think about how there is wisdom in all these little things, right? But maybe you should now, okay? Now that I've informed you, now you can look at things and look at it like, oh, I look at it a little bit differently now, right? Or I look at it and I have this thought now, you know what I mean, right? And that's what's really important, that you're thinking, that you're observing, that you're contemplating, that you're making choices, that you're deciding, right? And all of these things come together to create your wisdom, okay, right? And you want to build on your wisdom, okay, right? And recognize when something is imparting upon you, and recognize when you're like, oh, I shouldn't do this, or like oh, that's stupid, right? Like that's the feeling of, like, non-wisdom, that something is dumb, incompetent, or like it's not working. You know what I mean, right? You want to do things that are working, and, like, okay, it feels good, or like, but maybe, like, in the long term, like, maybe, like, something could be painful at the moment, but in the long term will be good, right? And you need to have the wisdom to figure that out, okay, right? Wisdom will make your art better, okay? Wisdom will make you smarter. Wisdom will make you make smarter decisions, and wisdom can get you through the hardest of times. Okay. I think we can end the video here, guys. Please, if you enjoyed that video, hit that like, hit that subscribe, check out my Princeton Patreon if you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member, and join that Discord. All that bullshit. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.